It's time for the Volquest Mailbag Podcast, answering your questions from the General's quarters every week, right here on Volquest.
Good Thursday morning, everybody, and welcome into the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. I'm Eric Kane, Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, and Ben McKee on with us here this week. If you're suffering from spring allergies like many of us are, then go ahead and check out Smoky Mountain Organics, East Tennessee's most trusted health and wellness store, focusing on natural products and organic remedies to a variety of ailments. Visit one of the 3 locations in East Tennessee. They have one right here in Knoxville. It's at 8018 Kingston Pike, across the street from the Trader Joe's. And of course, you can always shop online at SmokyMountainOrganics.com. Big shout out to them. Hey guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube page, Volquest YouTube page. When we post an interview, a story, whatever you got on there, a podcast, you guys will be notified at there. So subscribe and follow the Volquest YouTube page as always. Gentlemen, we've got a loaded bank of questions to get into today. We'll go ahead and start with Smoky Man 15. And Brent, we'll go ahead and start with you. What's it like being around Heupel, both from a media perspective and a player perspective?
Well, I can't speak for a player. I think the players like Josh Heupel because I think he and Rob and Ben can attest to this too. I think you talk to enough players, they feel like he's very real and that he's very genuine. There's some transparency there, and that there's a little bit more than just football 24/7 in a conversation with Josh Heupel. In terms of my personal dealings with him, I find him personable, and I think he's getting more and more comfortable with kind of the media spotlight here. I think that he understands kind of the scrutiny that comes with it. And Rob, let's face it, he's had a honeymoon to this point, right? I mean, last year was, hey, they're scoring a bunch of points. It was great. You never know how things change if you don't win when the expectation is really there to really win. But to this point, I think he's been easy to deal with. But I didn't have an issue dealing with Derek Dooley. I didn't have an issue dealing with Butch Jones. I didn't know. I mean, Lane Kiffin he was here a hot minute, so you didn't really get to know Lane Kiffin while he was here. And I didn't have issues with Jeremy Pruitt. He and I had we got crossways a couple times early on when he was here, but he was more than willing to sit down and hash it out, have a conversation, and some of it we agreed to disagree on and all that type of thing. But, I think Josh is probably more, I don't know, laid back's not the right word because he's a big time competitor, but I think he's a little more personable than some of the other guys have been in the last previous stops. And Rob, Lord knows we've had enough to get to know over the course of the last decade or so.
He's just so much more comfortable in his own skin. Is how I would describe it. And this may be oversimplifying things, but I think a lot of it comes from the fact that he played quarterback at a big time football program and is used to scrutiny. I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, there's more scrutiny as a head coach at Tennessee than there was being the quarterback at Oklahoma in 2001, 20 years ago, before Twitter, before Facebook, before all this stuff. But I just think he comes into this so much more prepared than any of the other guys you just mentioned.
Well,
I think Butch Jones was looking for enemies everywhere. I mean, when things were going great, Butch Jones was the best guy you could ever deal with. When things were going bad, you didn't want to be in a foxhole with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think outside noise bothered Butch Jones more than any other coach. There were times Derek Dooley just thought he was smarter than everybody else, and Jeremy Pruitt, Ben, was just ill-prepared to be a head coach. He wasn't ready, and you can say that's Nick Saban's fault, or I don't know, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, from a football standpoint, Jeremy Pruitt knows football, and he knows football well, but he knew nothing about how to run a program. And I think that was evident. Josh Heupel knows football, but also understands and continues to grow and understand the aspect of beyond the X's and O's. It's beyond drawing ball plays up when you're a head coach, Ben.
Yeah, and I'll sum it up quickly because I think you all have hit the nail on the head, and I have to give credit to Jason Swain for this point, but he's kind of maintained since Josh Heupel got hired that Heupel's the most proven head coach that Tennessee has hired since Johnny Majors, more so than Philip Fulmer and Lane, I guess maybe Lane would be the one that you could have a conversation about whether he was more proven than Heupel, but Lane had not been a successful head coach up until that point necessarily. And Josh Heupel certainly has a better track record than Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, Jeremy Pruitt when they were hired. So I point that out to bring up the thought that I think that has been obvious when you look at how Josh Heupel goes about his business and handles different situations, is that he's kind of been through the ringer and he knows what to expect, and he's very comfortable in his own skin, as Rob pointed out, and comfortable in what his offense is doing and comfortable with the culture. And I think that kind of bleeds over into how he deals with people, both football wise and away from the football field.
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be questions that he will not answer in a press conference setting. He'll get up there and talk for 20 minutes and not say anything. I mean, that's coach talk. That's 101. But he's getting more comfortable, in my opinion, in that setting. And he's just really personable. This is just something minor, but being out there covering these camps, just walking up saying, hey, what's going on over at baseball? Hey, what happened in that seventh inning? I mean, those are just little examples here in the last couple of times we've been over there to where he just seems like one of the guys. So one other one here from Spokane 15, and we won't spend too much time on it, Brent, because you answered it. I gave my thoughts on it as well, maybe a couple weeks ago, but anybody else can add to it. What do you expect to see differently pertaining to the offense this fall? I think short yardage, a different strategy there. Brent, I think you said maybe utilizing more of the middle of the field. Anything else that sticks out to you guys about the offense that we expect to see maybe a little bit differently this year?
Well, I think that, how does the growth of the quarterback run game, now that you know exactly what you've got with Hendon Hooker, how do you spend an entire offseason kind of putting a quarterback run game package together? Obviously, he's got to slide and take care of himself, but that's a big part of his game. How does that evolve? I think with him banged up for the stretch of the season, he was banged up there. They were pretty limited in how much they ran him. I think that affected the offense a little bit there. And then, what do they do at the tight end position? Is there a third tight end, and what do they do if they get banged up a little bit at tight end? Do they become even more spread with receivers? That type of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for this team is short yardage situations, whether it's in the red zone, or whether it's in just, 3rd and 1 somewhere. They've got to score more touchdowns and not settle for field goals in the red zone. They need to be a better red zone team. When the field shrinks, that this offense has to find some ways to score points other than the 70-yard touchdown bomb.
And that's good. Explosive plays are good because Tennessee had 20, I want to say 22, 23, maybe I'm off by 1 or 2 plays of 40 yards or more last year. And Tennessee had 2 such plays in 2021. So explosive plays are great, but I couldn't agree more. You got to find ways to punch it in or to convert, to get the line to gain in those type of situations. We'll go on now to Volgrad 05. Ben, should we all be trying to like recruits' Twitter posts that you guys or the official Volquest account retweet? Is there any real effect if a player sees that they have thousands of likes on their pro UT posts versus 49 likes on their pro UK posts?
I mean, I don't think it's
like it doesn't hurt, but
no. I mean, kids nowadays love the social media love. There's no doubt about that. But it's not going to be the difference maker between Tennessee getting a kid and not getting a kid. Maybe there's one rare occasion that it is the difference for a player, just like the player that decided to go to Auburn a couple of years ago because they had a Chick-fil-A on campus or something along those lines. They had his favorite fast food restaurant on campus. Like those kind of kids are an outlier. So maybe there's one every now and then, but I do most of the retweeting of recruits onto the Volquest account, and that's more just to not necessarily for people to like them or retweet or reach out to that recruit, but just to kind of show that, hey, this kid was here today, or this kid had this to say about Tennessee. It's just it's a form of news, and it certainly pertains to recruiting, and we cover recruiting in depth as it gets at Volquest. So that's mostly why I do retweet the recruits from the Volquest account, just so that everybody sees that, okay, this kid was on campus today, this kid's posting about his official visit, so on and so forth.
All right, we'll move on here to Ath. We'll run a couple of recruiting questions we'll run through here. Rob, what did you think of UT trusting Mazzell not to drop the Crystal Championship football in his video edit for Twitter?
That's a great question.
I mean, they put that out there as a prop, and a lot of kids have been posing with it. Brent, guys, y'all been doing this longer than we have, obviously, but I don't remember seeing that trophy out there in summers past.
And I feel nervous even when I see Hubbard, when I see the 25-year-old picture of Phillip holding it so high up in the air. I'm like, Coach, that's, I don't really feel like your grip, hug it. Hug it. Don't hold up there so much.
And they brought it by the radio station a time or two, and that thing's huge. I mean, it looks pretty heavy.
I don't know about you guys. I don't feel comfortable with the recruits holding that thing up there. I mean, I've not felt good. Not Mazzell specifically. No, any recruit, anybody. It all feels a little willy-nilly to me.
Well, I mean, I'll say this for Tennessee's photo department, creative services department. I think they have gotten better and improved what they're doing with their photo shoots. They've moved that into a different room. They've got more space. They're doing more stuff with lighting. They're enhancing those. We're sitting here in the previous question talking about likes and Twitter and all that stuff and whether that's important or not important. It's pretty crazy how important the photo shoot has become in the recruiting process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a big deal if a kid doesn't get to do a photo shoot. I mean, that can be a real turnoff to a kid. And it's even a big deal if they don't get to do it in the jersey that they wanted to do it in, and somebody else did. I mean, you know what I mean? So,
as little as it sounds, I mean, it does make a difference in some cases. Yeah,
it's pretty crazy that's a new. It used to be about, Rob. What the how much did they get lobster on the meal on their Friday night visit?
Was there a diving board?
Right. With Randy or at Notre Dame, was there a waffle maker versus a pancake machine at Notre Dame for Randy Moss? But it's crazy. The photo part's a big deal. I mean, doing a photo shoot's a big deal for kids. And Tennessee's creative department has upped their game, whether it's props or lighting or just kind of style that they do. Though they have done a good job of that over the course. Well, since Heupel's been here, that's an area they've really improved from year one to year two.
I'm just glad they could bring the trophy back out from the storage closet that was rumored with Harry Potter.
And Hubbard, you probably know, is that the trophy? Hubbard, surely there's a replica.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh,
there's a plastic replica.
Yeah, I don't think that one's plastic, but I'm sure there's a replica of some kind. I've not been upstairs to the trophy case next to Milligan's, what used to be Milligan's Island up there at the top, where Kim Milligan, former secretary, hung out and worked. So I don't know if that's a duplicate or a replica or not. I need to do some investigative work on that.
Hubbard, this is not perfect, but I was wanting to work this in, and I don't know if they'll listen to the podcast or not. But since you mentioned trophy case, I saw Danny Burnley and David Elliott's name on a golf scramble scorecard this week that they were part of a 59.
Well, I mean, David
18
Elliott
holes. You want to talk about some sandbagging, trophy grabbing.
That's a high
individuals.
School. That's almost over par for a David Elliott group now.
I've played in 59.
Hey, I played in enough scrambles where I knew I knew I was in trouble when David Elliott walked in with his scramble group, and there were like a semi-pro female golfer who was going to handle all the tee shots from the women's tee.
I don't want to mention that I came in. This was like the day after. I wasn't a part of the scramble. I just saw the scorecards, the scoreboard, and I saw Danny Burnley and David Elliott and two other just people along for the ride, and a 59. And I'm sure they picked. There's no telling what kind of pro shop credits were in the wake of that. It just a lot of victims. I just wanted.
All right, a couple more here from Athlon. Can you talk a little bit more about the running back Stallings from Vegas? That's Will Stallings. More of a power back, big back with speed, bowling ball type back. I mean, I can take this one. I saw him camp, I guess it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. He's a good looking guy. He's very built. I wouldn't characterize him as a bowling ball. He's about 6 foot, almost 6'1", 222, 223 pounds. I watched him go through drills. I thought he was a little stiff. I mean, it wasn't horrible. Thought he was a little stiff, a little very stiff up top, but he ran a 4.6. I think the second time he ran a high 4.6. So he's not going to be a burner by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a guy that Tennessee wanted to see. Tennessee saw enough in, and, is a guy that's got some momentum here when we talk running backs in this class. So, but it's Will Stallings from Bishop Gorman High School in Vegas is who you're referencing. Brent, do you think Kentucky got bad news on Conyer and told the Kentucky writer, which is why the crystal ball Conyer to UT here recently? They seemed confident up until then. I just think it's, stayed kind of the same case. AP said that Tennessee's been in a good spot for Conyer for months now, right?
Yeah, and I think Tennessee's been in a good spot there. Maybe the fact that he flashed the Vol sign with the Kentucky recruiting coach in his photo shoot might have been a tip-off to some people that Kentucky might not be the leader for him at that point. I don't think Christian Conyers told anybody anything in terms of destination. But, that's one of those deals that probably the vibe coming out of that was Kentucky's not in front, as some previous Kentucky people had implied, which obviously Austin has disagreed with the whole time. So I think Tennessee remains poised in a good spot with Christian Conyer, and he's scheduled to do something in the month of July. So I think Tennessee's positioned themselves well there.
How quickly is the Kentucky coach is going to tweet Rob?
Can we just get it correct?
Can we get a correct? An
correct.
AP correct? Correct.
Correct.
As AP just texted me, correct. So there we go.
Correct. All right. Sam Smith, 2233. Ben, has there ever been a coach more disliked by his peers and media than Tony V? And of course, you guys, Rob and Brent, could maybe add on to this.
Yeah, Brent and Rob can probably answer it better than me.
Yeah.
I haven't been around as long as those old guys, but
wow.
I off the top of the head, I mean, Tony's got to be up there. There aren't many head coaches in the SEC that like him, if there's any. I mean, you thought Dave Van Horn was one of his allies, but that quickly went away last year when he and Tony got into it after the game when Arkansas came to town. Tim Corbin, I don't think there's many happy feelings there. I know South Carolina's not big fans of old Tony. Missouri's not big fans,
right? I mean,
how could you not respect what Tony has done with what was one of the worst baseball programs in the country, and now he's turned it into a powerhouse? And as somebody put it to me earlier this week, everybody sure is happy that they lost earlier this week, but these top transfers in the portal still want to come to Tennessee. So that tells you really all you need to know. So it is certainly up there. And the funny part is that Tony Vitello could not give one crap what the rest of his compadres think of him. So I would say that he's certainly up there. I mean, I'm sure there's a football coach or two that folks do not like, but Tony Vitello is not well liked by his peers for his actions on the field and just how fiery he is, and he quite frankly does not care.
Hubbard, easy answer.
Go ahead.
I mean,
go ahead,
Tony does not go to Destin because when the season's there, but if he did, he'd have way more dinner partners than Bruce Pearl. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably right. I mean, I would say that that's probably the case. Here's the interesting thing about Tony, and I think Pearl is, a little bit into this category as well. I don't think Tony is disliked by the media, particularly the national media. Now, I think there are some beat writers that cover other SEC teams that don't like Tony, but because they hear they're the team that they're covered, that they don't like Tony, so it kind of bleeds that way a little bit. But I don't think Kendall Rogers and these national people dislike Tony. I think the national media that were taking jabs at Tennessee for not winning the Super Regional were doing it because of the Tennessee fan base and the issue they've had with the Tennessee fan base going back to Shiano Gate, more so than it was they don't like Tony Vitello. Now, I know Paul Feinbaum said something. I don't think Paul Feinbaum's ever met Tony Vitello, knows anything about Tony Vitello. But from a national standpoint, Ben, I don't think Tony's reputation is anything negative in any way. Maybe I'm missing that, but I don't see it that way.
No, I don't think you are. I think that is a spot on analysis, and I think especially what you said about the other beat writers in the SEC and what they may hear from the coaches that they cover bleeds over into the things that they say publicly about Tony Vitello. But I think that the dislike for this year's baseball team was more about the power T on the cap than necessarily Tony Vitello on the field. People just do not like Tennessee when things are going well, because the fans let them hear about it when things are going well. And then you obviously had some examples here and there of the players and coaches being a little extra fiery, more so than you typically see these days.
All right, guys, let's go around the room. Rob, let's start with you. Who has the better year? Is it Byron Young or Tyler Barron?
Maybe why? I'm not saying that I think Tyler Barron's going to have a bad year. I think we've all looked at Byron Young since spring practice a year ago and have been like, man, that guy looks like he's shot out of a cannon. And I just wonder, what he can be like with kind of 2 all seasons in an SEC program. I mean, he's just got the quick twitch that you can't teach, you can't coach.
I think Tyler Barron's playing in position now, more so than what he has so far being at Tennessee. I would say BY as well. Brent, who you got in this one?
I got BY, and I didn't have to think twice about it.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on Tyler Barron. I think the biggest question with Tyler Barron is
durability.
Can he stay healthy? I mean, he has a hard time getting through games. And so I think that from a production standpoint, I think Byron Young is a guy that offenses are going to be worried about much more than Tyler Barron.
Clean sweep for me. I'm going BY, and you all summed it up perfectly. Tyler Barron just has to be more consistent. It's as simple as that.
All right, how was Juwan Mitchell done this offseason? Brent, you can add some more to this if you like, but I mean, you hear good things, right? Saw him out there. He was doing workouts when we were out there covering a camp the other day. Looks good. Of course, he was out there doing everything in practice, wearing a yellow jersey, so he wasn't in contact. But you're hearing good things from Juwan Mitchell, and if you can get anything from Juwan Mitchell, that's a good thing for that linebacking room, right?
Yeah, I just got to see it once they get into fall camp and just see. I mean, where's he at mentally? Where's he at from a focus and buy-in standpoint? Can he stay healthy? Obviously,
much better than from the fall, though. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's in a much better place than he was in the fall. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I just think there's a lot of prove it in Juwan Mitchell to this point. So we'll see what he does in August.
And then Rob Lewis, what would be your dream basketball home and home to cover?
Well, I got to go to Kansas. Man, that's a good question. I've been to Kansas. I've been to North Carolina. I guess, Duke. I guess I would have to take cover with me.
No, I don't think that. I mean, again, there's not a ton of basketball meccas. I mean, there is, but they've played in many of those. I mean, Madison Square Garden. The history of the Garden there. In terms of on-campus facilities, I mean, you got Rupp Arena.
There's not a bunch that they've not been to.
Yeah, they've been to a lot of places
go every year.
I mean, I don't know that you want to go to Gonzaga. I mean, I don't think that's anything that's wowing anybody. So no, I don't think that there's a bucket list dream one, if you will, Eric.
Yeah, let's we're running out of time here, so let's continue to move on. First impressions of the summer arrivals. Heard good things, obviously, in the spring. Seen a couple of those guys out there. Brent, I think Dylan Sampson looks good. Heard a lot of good things about Jason Jenkins, as AP, kind of put up there. It looks like Squirrel White's continuing to gain some weight. As more and more of these summer guys continue to get in, we get eyes on them, we'll know more. But a couple of those, Sampson's the one that I've seen the most of out there a couple of times. I also saw Messiah Reddick, big guy, and he's going to benefit from being in the strength and conditioning program as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that you got to be careful with first impressions. I mean, that very few show up way out of shape or anything like that. Dylan Sampson's a little bit bigger. Jenkins has gotten a lot bigger since he committed to Tennessee. I think that's a positive sign. So, we'll see what they look like and what kind of the vibe is on those. I'm always cautious about that because I've anointed enough people through the years as the next this or that, and they turned out to be nothing. Woody Quinn. So I think at this point, I'll kind of put up a little pause on that and wait and see what it looks like in a few more weeks.
Joe Milton.
yeah.
Kenny O'Neal.
Certainly passes the eye test. Brent, let's stay with you real quick. July the 1st voting date in Nashville. Too late to get architect hired and construction crew. contracted with materials needed to break ground after next baseball season?
No, I think they'll break ground right after the season. I think that as soon as Tennessee's season's over next year, it might look like them tearing up the Augusta National at the end of the Masters. I think you may see backhoes and all kinds of things roll in from the get-go. I think there's no doubt in talking to Danny White that his expectation and belief is that they will break ground and move dirt this time of year from now on the baseball side of things.
Ben McKee, these are questions from Vols 1024, by the way. Will any updates be done this offseason in terms of Tennessee baseball, even if it's minor player development stuff? I know you're going to say yes to that, but real quickly, kind of explain the transfer portal situation with baseball throughout the summer.
It's much different than football or basketball. It is very slow compared to what football and basketball is. And that's in large part because a lot of these guys are going off and playing summer ball. I mean, as soon as the season was over on Sunday, you had Charlie Taylor and others going up to the Cape Cod, which is the premier, the best of the best summer league baseball for college baseball players that there is. And Tennessee had a couple of players go up there. Tennessee's got a couple of players out in California in a collegiate league. There's the Pacific Coast League, which is more in the Southeast. So players are all over the place. Maui Ahuna, Tennessee's commit from Kansas, he left his visit from Tennessee and went straight up to the Cape Cod. So it's not as easy to get these kids in for visits and whatnot. So it is a lengthier process over the course of the summer, and it could go all the way up until school starts in August. So it's a little bit different in that sense. And because you have more baseball players on a baseball team than you do, and I guess this more so applies to basketball. My point is that there are a lot of players in the transfer portal, already up to over 2,000 players in the transfer portal. So that kind of makes it difficult as well at times. But when you are as successful as Tennessee, if you reach out to a kid, more likely than not, they are going to have automatic interest in you because you are the hot thing in college baseball right now. And again, like I said earlier, this came from somebody in the program, is that everybody's happy that we lost, but it's not stopping all of these top tier talents in the portal from wanting to come to Tennessee. So Tennessee, not necessarily drafting players, but there is a little bit of, hey, we want you, and you can practically get that kid if you show interest.
Hey, real quick, Ben, two things. One, I think there is a chance they might do some more with the porches from a temporary standpoint in terms of the offseason. Will they adjust the right field wall in any way, shape, or form? I know that's been discussed. Do you see anything temporary being done there?
I don't.
Okay.
At least not in the immediate future.
Okay.
Maybe that's something that they do when they have
the big
full-on renovations. Because look, I mean, that it's a fair conversation to have. I know Tennessee has had its fair share of benefiting home runs from Lindsey Nelson Stadium. The home run to tie it against Notre Dame, the kid put a decent swing on it, but it wasn't a bad pitch from Chase Burns, and Tennessee just kind of got Lindsey Nelson Stadiumed. So it'd be hard not to want to push the fence a little bit back after having that happen to you.
All right, just a couple of minutes left. We'll run through some recruits real quick, and Hub, feel free to jump in if you know more than I do on these. Decision time, this is from Volunteers 52. Decision time frame for the following recruits. Stanton Ramel, he'll be on an official visit this weekend. He's looking at a later decision, maybe even in the fall. Christian Conyers, probably in July. Jeremiah Thielander, no timeline as of now. Jalen Smith, late June, early July. We had an update on him, of course, from last weekend. Nathan Leacock, I don't believe that there's a timeline there. Brent, do you know anything on Shadavion Bradley or Rico Walker? I know they had some visits to go.
I don't think there's a timeline for sure on Rico Walker. Probably end of summer. Shadavion Bradley, I think, is going to do something in July, 1st of August at the latest. And Jalen Smith, we'll see where that timeline goes. He's going to do something this summer. Could be a little sooner, or it might be a situation where he goes a little deeper in July. But I'm with you. I think you're looking at late June, 1st of July with him.
Any linebacker recruits that Tennessee's in on outside of C.J. Allen, with Thielander and Smith as well. Brent had a nice write-up on a junior college linebacker, Justin Jefferson. Also, Cameron Robinson's in that conversation. Let's go around the room here. Rob, will we finish better with the offensive line or a defensive line class?
And I got to say defensive line right now. And it's just maybe they miss on a lot of these guys, but the dudes that have been on campus in the last 4 to 6 weeks, really impressive. I could go on and on, but I'll say defensive line just because of, we mentioned Shandavia Bradley, the junior college guys that have been here. I think Rodney Gardner's doing some heavy lifting over.
Well, Rodney Garner's a veteran coach. I think this offensive line is going to be really interesting to see what takes shape coming out of the next couple of weekends, Eric, when you look at the official visitors that they've got coming in. We may have a much better feel for where this thing goes, offensive line. If they hit on some of these guys coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks, that there's going to be quite a bit of buzz about offensive line commitments at Tennessee.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's to be determined. My answer now would be defensive line, but one big signing or one big commit could change the difference in that, of course. One more here for Ben. What do you believe in terms of the wide receiver class or the defensive back class? Which one will Tennessee finish better than? And again, one commit could change the whole outlook.
Eric, did you just give Ben a wide open freeway and a defensive back question?
We're gonna
that's
need
my
to
fault.
We're going to need to add 20 minutes to this Zoom in order for me to cover the defensive backs, because nobody covers defensive backs better than Ben McKee himself. But I'm going to go wide receivers.
Fluid hips.
Fluid hips, indeed. I will add Christian Conyer. He is announcing on July 3rd his decision, but I'm going to go receivers. Obviously, Carnell Tate, the big fish there, and certainly think Tennessee's in a great spot with Carnell Tate, and that will certainly swing if he does end up picking Tennessee. That will easily swing that answer in the receivers' favors, and it also seems like Tennessee's more in better spots for more talented receivers than they are defensive backs. The defensive backboard for me continues to be a little bit confusing. It's become a little more obvious of late, but not as straight and to the point as receivers, in my opinion.
Final word goes UT Sportsman 16. Better chance to contribute this season beyond special teams, freshman DB or freshman edge guy. That would be a freshman edge guy. That is literally all the time we have coming down to the final seconds here. A big shout out to Smoky Mountain Organics for sponsoring these podcasts, the Mailbag Pod. 3 locations in East Tennessee, including the location in Knoxville, 8018 Kingston Pike, across the street from the Trader Joe's. For Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis, Ben McKee, I'm Eric Kane. Thanks so much for listening to the Volquest Podcast, Mailbag Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.
You've been listening to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast every week right here on Volquest.